Welcome to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that puts you right in the heart of women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and each week I'm on a mission to showcase the incredible women who are lighting up the ice across the globe. Get ready as I chat with rising stars, seasoned pros, and all the game changers making waves in the world of women's hockey that you won't find anywhere else. So, let's dive into the exciting world of women's hockey and make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Welcome back to Rinkside Rundown. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today I'm excited to be joined by Tara Bach, a goaltender with the Stoney Creek Sabres and future Mercyhurst University Laker. Tara, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, Chris. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. So am I. And I always like, especially when this is the first time I have someone on the show, I always think that it's a great spot to start in how it all started for you. So let's start with more broadly, what was it about hockey that kind of like grabbed you and pulled you into the sport?
Of course. So I think my story might be a little different than most because we came from Germany. So my parents were like, Canada, everyone knows how to skate. So they put me into skating lessons. And while I was at the rink, I actually saw a hockey game. And I was like to my parents, hey, I want to do that. And it just looked like something fun to do. So then I started my first year with the Oakville Hornets, and I was actually a player, which I feel like makes sense to start out. But I was always kind of drawn to the position of goalie. And that year, we actually were the only team in the entire house league level who had a permanent goalie. So I didn't actually have a chance to try. So the next year, I actually tried out for the rep team for my first time ever playing goalie, and I made it. So that was kind of where it all started. Just, I really loved the excitement of being in net and kind of having the ability to change the entire game for the team.
Nice. I love that. And what was that transition like for you from, being, I presume, a forward? Were you a forward before? Yeah. What was that transition like for you from going from a forward? Because it's one thing to go from defense to goaltender, because at least then you kind of like, you already have that sort of mindset. But going from forward, although obviously you want to be a defensive forward, it's not always the thing that happens. But what was that transition like for you going from forward to goaltender? That's a big jump.
Yeah, so like I said, I never actually got to play goalie before I tried out, so it really just felt so fast because one game I was playing out and the next game I was in net for a whole season. So what my parents actually did was in the summer I played 3-on-3 as a player, so I still had the opportunity to, score those goals and play out while still like having fun playing in net. So yeah, that's kind of how I managed that, but I was pretty young, so I just kind of did what I had fun doing, and yeah.
Is there ever a moment where you're like, yeah, I just miss scoring those goals rather than having to stop the goals?
So I actually still play 3-on-3 in the summer, so I do still get to score those goals, just in a little bit of a shorter time frame in the summer, but yeah, my parents were encouraging it. I keep playing out until now just because I really enjoy it. I love scoring goals even though I'm a goalie, and I know how sad and hard that can be sometimes, but it's a lot of fun, so I just keep doing it.
Okay, last question on this then. I need to know, when you are scoring goals, what's your shot? Is it like a slap shot? Is it a wrister? Like, walk us through that your patented shot that always rings the back of the net there.
I always, if I have the opportunity, I like driving the net and just getting really close because I have that other view on it, so I can see when I'm close to the goalie. If they're down, I just go around them, and if they're still up when I'm that close to them, I just either go 5-hole or I try to go over their pad. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm a little rusty sometimes in the summer, but it's been working pretty well.
Okay, now the last one though. Being you know, being a forward, how does that shaped and maybe changed how you approach your own game? Because like, hey, these are the shots that I'm scoring on the opponents. How has that maybe shaped the way that you approach your own game?
Yeah, I think it's as a player, you're always like trying to find that perfect backdoor play and everything. And I think it's just made me more aware of where everyone is on the ice. I always know whether there's someone backdoor who's trying to score. And then, if they have a breakaway and they're stick handling a bunch, I think that they're going to try to deke because that's what I would try to do. Obviously these players have gotten a lot better and they're more deceptive now, but it's kind of helped me recognize when someone's going to shoot and reading the release off of their stick, whether they're trying to go low or high, and it's just kind of made it easier for me to know what's going to happen.
Great. And earlier you had mentioned your family. And I think, one of the things that I really love talking about is how much it takes. It really does, especially when it comes to hockey. There are it happens with all sports, but especially with hockey because, there's the financial commitment there, and especially as a goalie, as your family knows. But there's a tremendous financial commitment. There's also time going to and from practices, going to and from games. Family, it really does take a village in terms of being able to have or be involved in hockey. And so I always love to highlight the family aspect of things because I think as fans, we're just used to seeing you on the ice, and especially for you, one of the top goaltenders in the OWHA. We see your stats, and it's great. She's doing so well, but we don't necessarily see the amount of work that goes into, behind the scenes. So I always like to ask, when it comes to you, what has family meant to you throughout this process, especially coming from Germany, which is a really interesting story. I'd love to hear more about.
Yeah, they really mean everything to me. My mom, my brother, my dad, even, my dogs, even though they don't contribute as much on the financial side. But I'm so thankful for everything they've done, especially my parents. As you mentioned, the financial aspect of it, especially being a goalie, is huge, playing in the OW, committing to that. And then just, all of the time that they've put in, driving me to practices. Stoney Creek can be an hour and a half. I know that's not the most insane to some people, but it's a lot of time commitment for them that they've put in for me my entire life. And I'm really grateful because I don't think I would be where I am right now without my parents. And they just always show up for me. They always show up for my games. And if they're not able to, maybe because my brother has a game or something, they'll always have, the live barn on, and they're always cheering me on, even if they're not there in person. They'll ask me how my game went. And I'm just so grateful for everything they've done. And I probably don't tell them enough, but it means a lot to me.
That's okay. We can clip this part of the episode so that we can just play it on repeat for your family and just give them that moment to appreciate the sacrifices they've made to make you into who you are. And I want to know as well, knowing that even if they're not in the barn with you watching, just what does it feel like to know that they put in all of this work, all of this, truthfully, all of this effort and all of these sacrifices, knowing that they're watching, again, even if they're not live in person, what does it mean to you to know that they're there and that they continue to support you and that they continue to encourage you through the ups and the downs. Although, let's be honest, you have many, many more ups that we'll get into than downs throughout your career.
Yeah, you mentioned downs, and when I have a bad day, if I have a bad game, I tend to be down, obviously. And in the car after the game, my dad's always telling me, it's okay. You had a bad game, but there's always the next one. And he kind of tries to put that in my mind that it'll be okay just because you had one bad game. And having both of my parents be there for me and just making sure that I'm okay, even though it might be a bad day, they just keep supporting me. And it's really helpful to me to know that just because I have a bad game doesn't mean that they'll support me any less.
Oh, that must feel so reassuring, right? So like when you go into that next game, it's just like it's a blank slate. Is that fair to say that when they give you that encouragement, good or bad, great performance or maybe slightly less great performance from you, that they're constantly there to support you? That must feel like, just like I said, just like next game, blank slate.
Yeah, I think it takes a weight off of myself not to have to, you know, think about whether they'll be there for me or whether they'll support me. And I think as a goalie, even, just having that blank slate, whether it's after the game, next game, whatever. But if you let a goal in, having the next shot count more and kind of forgetting about that goal until after when you can really reflect on it and see what you can do better. Because in the moment, there's just nothing you can do. It happened. You got to move past it and just keep playing as well as you can.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a great question in that, like, when you look back at your career thus far, what are some of the challenges that you've faced, and also added to that, like, how did you overcome those challenges, and how do you overcome that adversity? Like, as an athlete, there's an athlete mentality, right? Like, where it's like, I have to be the best all the time. And how do you maybe overcome those obstacles and those challenges that you've had to face?
Yeah, definitely. So I think probably one of the biggest things that happened to me was my first year of junior last year. Our first game ended up being against Chicago Mission, and that was a rough game for me. And after that, my confidence kind of suffered because I let in all of these goals against, a good team, but I still let in these goals. I kind of struggled for a while after that, thinking, maybe I shouldn't have jumped up to junior or played a year ahead or whatever. But after that, I ended up actually being able to play them again in another tournament later in the year. And, we only lost 1-0 on this penalty kill goal that they scored in the third. And it just I overcame that and realized that one bad game, my first game in junior where the pace was so much higher, didn't mean that I was a bad goalie. And it just, my confidence kind of suffered for a while there, but playing well this year and everything has definitely helped again.
Do you feel like, especially going into this season, do you ever look back on that specific example, um, and remember that you are as good as you are, despite maybe some of those games in which you didn't save as many? Like, do you ever look back and say, like, yeah, I remember how I felt in that moment, and I am better than I was then. I am a really good goalie. Like, how do you use that experience and that specific example to kind of motivate you, especially going in this season that you're in right now?
Yeah, I think that one was a good example just because, I had the opportunity to play them again and showcase that I was better than the game that I put on before. I think it just meant a lot because it taught me that, everyone can have a bad game, and anyone, if we play a team and their goalie doesn't play that well, I'm not just automatically going to assume that they're a bad goalie. They, like me, everyone can have a bad game, and if we play them again, I don't want to just assume that we're going to get a bunch of easy goals, because they might have had a bad game and they can do so much better, just like myself. And it just taught me that, having a bad game is okay, as long as you don't suffer the consequences of it too much and stay that low for that long, because staying too low or too high either way can really be hard for yourself when you end up eventually coming down or going up again.
All right. Well, I think that answers a future question that I have for you in terms of advice, but we'll get to that in just a moment, because I think that's tremendous advice right there. And I do want to know, especially as someone who didn't wasn't born in Canada. I wanted to know, who are some of your role models and influences, especially early on, but certainly now that you're in, with Stoney Creek and having such a tremendous career with them. I kind of want to know, who are some of those role models and influences for you?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I had watched the NHL a lot, because obviously there wasn't PWHL to look up to. My main influence was Carey Price, just because, awesome goalie. But I think now it's gotten to the point where there are these women that you can look up to, and Kirsten Campbell, and the German goalie who just retired, Jennifer Haas. Now that I know who they are, because of the popularity that's grown, they've become my inspirations and who I look up to and what I want to do one day. So yeah.
So what was it specifically about those goalies that that kind of drew you to them? Was it their style of play? Was it just, obviously being a great goalie is a great answer for that, for this question, but what specifically was it about them that you really liked the most?
I think for Carey Price, it was his ability to make saves, in key moments, and keep either his team in the game or keep it close so that their team still has an opportunity to win or even tie it. And then for Jennifer, I would say, just because she's kind of was the foundation of goaltending for the German team for a while, at the Olympics, all of that. So that's just kind of something I really look up to, and something I hope to be able to do one day.
Yeah, and I think, when we, you're helping to provide these great segues, so I appreciate this so much, Tara. One of the things, another aspect of any sport, but we're obviously talking about hockey right now, is something that people don't necessarily get a chance to see, is the off-ice stuff. So I want to know, when we're talking about being like a great person, a great player, a lot of that also involves being involved in the community, being involved in, connecting with the fans and being able to spend time with the fans, because they're really obviously like that. Without fans, there's no game to play, right? When as you continue your career, what do you think, or how do you think it's meant to you, as well as the fans, to be able to just connect with them and connect with the community?
Yeah, it means a lot. After our games, there's always a team at our game. It's called Pizza and Pucks. So it'll be a younger team, and we'll have hockey cards of everyone on our team. And after the game, they'll come down and they'll ask all of us for signatures. And it means a lot to me, because I'm just giving them something as simple as, an autograph. And to them, it might be, it means the world. And I realize how much that means now, because I remember when I was a young girl and I was out watching these junior games, and I was like, these girls are so cool. I want all of their autographs. And after one of our games recently, actually, I was giving an autograph, and this girl's mom was like, "Come on, we gotta go. Do you have enough?" And she was like, "No, I need all of them." And I was like, it just shows you how much they look up to you, and that just means a lot. And then I also, during the summer, I coaches at a goalie camp, and I see these young girls who I'm helping develop their skills, but also I help them have fun with the game. And I recognize that now I'm helping the next generation of goaltenders, even though, they might not be that much younger than me, but it means so much to be able to give back to the community, whether that's, signing cards or helping them teach.
And I think that's, you bring up a great point in that, like it may just be a signature or it may just be a photo, but that really is a lasting memory for whomever the young girl is that got that experience with you. And I want to know, and I asked earlier, just a moment ago, about, how, like, who are the role models that you looked up to? But I want to know, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to give you a chance to kind of expand on it here. What is it like knowing that you are also a role model? Is that something that ever, like, has it sunk in yet, that you feel like you realize that there are young girls out there who are, maybe modeling their own goalie career after you? What is like, walk me through, like, as someone who hasn't had that opportunity, walk me through what that must feel like, and how cool it is to know that you're also a role model and an influence on so many young girls out there.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think it's sunk in quite yet, but when I see these girls, I realize that they want my signature. And to me, that's just crazy, because I feel like a few years ago I was them, and it doesn't feel like it's been that long. And now I've gotten to this point where, people know who I am sometimes. Like, I was helping out at my co-op, and I met this mom, and she was talking about how her daughter plays hockey and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I play hockey too. And she's like, what's your name? I'm like, Tara. She's like, oh, I think my daughter knows you, and she's going to be so excited to hear that, she met me today. So it's crazy to me that people, know who I am sometimes, and then not even just that, but, want my signature and modeling their game after me. I don't know about that part yet, but, it means a lot.
Good. Yeah, and they absolutely are modeling their game after, again, like I said, one of the top goaltenders. So they absolutely are modeling their game after you. And I want to know, speaking of being one of the top goaltenders, you play, as we've mentioned, for the Stoney Creek Sabres, and I just kind of wanted to know, from your perspective, just let's talk about, like, what's your experience been like playing for them, and maybe what are some of the biggest takeaways thus far with the program?
Yeah, I think off the ice, I was really shy in U15, and I didn't actually talk a lot. That was when I was back at my old organization, would never know. But then when I went to U18, all of the girls were so welcoming, and they ended up actually becoming, some of my best friends. Even now, some of them moved away, and I still talk to them. I FaceTime some of them now. But it's just, it was amazing, because I was in U15 and I wanted to play U18, and Taylor Abbott, my coach, was like, yeah, sure, come on. And that trust that he placed in me, I think, helped me a lot, because, it helped my confidence, it helped my game develop, because I was able to play against these faster, stronger, I don't know, quicker, better girls. And then, on the ice, I think when I went to junior, playing some of the best, teams in the U22 league, just helped me prepare for whatever's gonna come next.
Yeah, I think you touched on it briefly at the beginning there, but I am absolutely shocked to hear that you were shy at any point. It's great that this program is, or that these programs have helped kind of like make you feel more confident and make you feel more comfortable. And it's always great when you have that support from the team. And I want to know as well, like when you think back, with you on your time with the Sabres, I kind of wanted to know as well, like what were some of those moments like that really stood out to you? They can be on the ice, they can be off the ice. Obviously, as fans, we've seen on the ice, so maybe some off ice, but whatever, wherever you want to take this, I just kind of want to know what were some of those favorite memories thus far with your time with the Sabres.
I'd say my first year was, as I said, U18, and that provincial finals game was an amazing feeling because it could have been our last game together ever, or we could have had a whole nother tournament. And winning that game just felt amazing because we got to prove that we are as good as, everyone said we are. And it has been a goal of ours the entire season. We sat down at the start of the season, we were like, we want to go to ESO. And then being able to actually achieve that at the end of the year, beating out, I don't know, 80 other teams to make it there was, an amazing feeling just for our entire team.
What were some of the biggest takeaways during that entire period of time? Like, what were some of the things that really stood out to you, and maybe as it from a team perspective, but also I want to know from you personally, like, what were some of those things where you're like, yeah, like I grew during that time? Like, what were some of those things for you?
Yeah, I'd say, I throughout my entire year was with the Stoney Creek Sabres. I kind of struggled, being positive sometimes on the ice. Just every time I let in a goal, I would let it get me down, and the entire rest of the game, I'd be so upset. And everyone on the ice could tell when I was upset that I let it go in. And I think it just taught me to move on from those things until I could care about them, because it wasn't helping me and it was making my team suffer because they thought that they couldn't, know that I'd be okay. And they thought that they would have to worry about me instead of just playing their game. And it just helped me grow. Like I said earlier, I was so shy. Like, you actually would not believe. I don't think the girls in my Oakville U15 year thought that I talked. I just sit in the corner and I was kind of scared of all of them. But I've grown so much as a person since then, and it's a lot to do with the girls on our team and how we interact with each other. And especially, this year we all get along so well, and just, there's no fights about, I don't know, anything. And if there is, we figure it out and we don't make a giant deal of it. And I think that just says a lot about our team.
Nice, and I love that. And when we talk about your career, we talk about those successes, or these successes that you've had rather. And one of those successes most recently has been a big accomplishment again with Team Ontario Red, with the U18 Nationals. And I wanted to know, first of all, congratulations on winning gold. No big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fantastic to see that. What was that experience like for you?
It was actually unreal. To be honest, after the tryout camp, I wasn't sure whether I'd make red, just because I see how many, insanely talented goalies there are in Ontario. So even just, getting the email that I made the team was such an honor, and I wasn't expecting it, but I
Do you
took
remember
it.
where do you remember where you were in that moment when you got that email? Do you remember like that exact experience? Walk me through. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to know, like, bring us into that moment.
So I actually just came home and I was walking into the kitchen and I looked at my phone and my dad actually texted me because they CC'd him on the email. And he was like, "Congrats on making Team Ontario red." And I was like, "Excuse me?" So I immediately went into my emails and I like refreshed it and it was like, "Congrats." I was like, it took me a second. I was like, "Are you
Is
sure?"
it, yeah, is this
Um,
for real? Is this for real? Like,
yeah,
am I
like
just getting punked? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I was like, I don't know, am I dreaming or something? But I don't even know what I was doing before that because it just kind of, I don't know if I blacked out or anything, but it was just so exciting. I was like, holy, I'm going to nationals and I have a chance to win. And it was just, yeah, I was not expecting it.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but I always love, like, for the rest of us who don't get to experience those moments, it's always fun to hear, like, yeah, no, I was just like walking into the kitchen and I got this text or something like that. It's so cool. But going back to that whole experience, like going through going through camp and all those sorts of things, going through the games. It was obvious, like, it was a great tournament. It was a fantastic tournament, tons of talent. Like, when you look back on being able to, like, be a part of that, what is it? Does it give you more confidence in terms of your own game, in terms of your progress, when you're also included in the top talent that is within, in this case, Canada, but specifically with Ontario?
Yeah, definitely. Making that team meant that someone thought I was one of the top four or top two goalies in all of the province for our age group. And, the experience was just unreal. Winning is always great, but I think this time I took more time to, be in the moment and the that team was so fun to be around that there will be so many other things that I'll remember from that experience, and winning the medal will just be one of them.
Yeah, and I have to ask, your head coach, Joe Bukovich. I want to know, um, I want to know, like, what kind of impact. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask what kind of impact he had on you, and how some of the advice or some of those, that feedback or some of those things, because he's obviously definitely one of the best youth coaches out there. And I'm not just saying that because I know him, but I want to know the impact that he and his coaching staff as well had on you during that experience.
Yeah, I'd say personally, he was always saying, keep your feet in the moment and be where you are. And I think that really helped me, just enjoy the entire experience and actually live where I was instead of always focusing about, we have to make it to the finals, we have to make it to the semis, we have to make it, just all of that. He was like, during the entire tournament, we actually had hype videos from one of our other staff members who was in just amazing. And at the end of every one of them, before the first game, it was step one, step two, step three, step four, and they just kept reinforcing the fact that we're not going to get to where we want to be. We're not going to get to step six if we don't focus on where we are right now. Whether that was step one, we have to win that game in order to get to the next one. And that entire coaching staff was so great at keeping us together as a team and making sure that we focused on the things that we needed to focus on, but also letting us have the time to just experience the entire, nationals, just being there, having fun, but also being ready whenever you had to be.
I love that. And I love that because it will set you up not just for this tournament, but moving forward. And when we think about the other experiences that you've had, you've also had the opportunity to represent your country, which is always a fantastic opportunity. Most recently in the U18 Four Nations, where you were also a champion. So no big deal. You just keep winning them. I just want to know, we talk about winning, but it's different when you're winning for your country. When you put on that jersey, when you get a chance to represent your country, what does that feel like for you?
Yeah, for me, since I don't live there, I feel like it almost means a little bit more because every time I go back, every time I put on the jersey, I'm reminded of the fact that my entire family lived lived there, and we're all either living there at some point, or my entire extended family still lives there. And not even winning, but just having the opportunity to, it's surreal because a few years ago I didn't know that that was even an option for myself. I didn't know whether I would be able to make it. And every time I put it on, whether it was for the Four Nations, I just wanted to make everyone, my family proud, myself proud of the fact that, you know, I am I am German, and it it's my country, and the fact that I get to represent them, like even just being there is an honor, and it just every single time I'm there it means so much.
And so I love that, and to kind of tie this into a previous question that I had around family, what did it mean also to your family back home, who you know um, they see you, obviously they're seeing you play, but now they're seeing you play with their country, or your country obviously, but your country's jersey on. Like, what is it, like, is it kind of surreal for them to sit back and say, like, hey, look, this is this is Tara, she's wearing our jersey, this is such an incredible moment. Like, what does it mean to your family as well, who may not necessarily always get a chance to see you, but certainly not see you in your own country's colors?
Yeah, I hope it means a lot to them too. I think they get to say, or if they want to, that this is someone who's related to me, and they get to represent our country when they're in Germany, and they're like, it means a lot to them, I guess. And being able to say that I'm related to someone who makes our country proud of having a good hockey team or whatever, winning the Four Nations. She was on that team and was part of the reason that it happened. I think that means a lot to everyone.
And, we continue to celebrate how great of a goaltender you are, because you win at all levels. And you also had the opportunity to participate in the Youth Olympics. And I think let's start off with, for those out there who maybe are not as familiar with the Youth Olympics, maybe tell us a little bit more about the Youth Olympics, but also your own personal experience, because like I said, once again, unsurprisingly, you took part in that as well. So maybe, talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so the Youth Olympics are, well, this 2024, they were in South Korea in Gangwon, and it was the Winter Olympics. So similar to the actual Olympics, they run every 4 years. So the Summer Olympics will be in 2 years, and then the next 2 years it'll be the Winter Olympics. And it was, all of the sports: skiing, snowboarding, hockey, ringette, maybe not ringette, I'm not sure about that one. But it was kind of just, this super large, occasion where all of the teams were able to play each other. And for me, it was kind of the first experience that I've had on that large of a scale. I was previously at SO, but that was just hockey. And having all of these other sports, it makes it a lot different than you think it would be. And it it was insane.
And for you, like, maybe I don't want to group all of these experiences together, but I feel like it might be a little bit easier to. But things like winning at in U18 and representing your country, like when you look back, and the Youth Olympics as well, obviously, when you look back at those experiences, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you have? I mean, the default question would be, what are the biggest takeaways you have as a player? Definitely answer that if you'd like to. But I also want to know, as a person, going through those experiences, and we're going to get into it in just a moment, but looking at the next step in your career as well.
Yeah, I think especially, the Youth Olympics, we faced a lot of adversity getting there. We ended up losing in the group stage to the team we actually ended up beating in the bronze medal game. And I think a lot of us were kind of worried or concerned that we already lost to them. There's no way we're going to beat them again. But the fact that we were able to push through that and show that we did deserve to win that medal meant a lot. As a person, that taught me that just because something may go wrong, it'll end up being okay if you just push through it and keep working hard. And if you keep working hard, I think we deserve to win that medal because we just kept pushing and didn't let them, have the opportunity to score when they needed to score. They pulled their goalie at the end and we ended up getting an empty net goal. We just didn't let them have those opportunities. And it just, as a person, I think that meant a lot and showed me how much that can impact the whole entire game.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice. I think that's one of those things where it's really just great advice for anyone as well. Like just let it go.
Yeah.
So I love that, and I want to know, as we continue through your career, the successes that we've explored. One of the next successes that you will be able to experience is your collegiate career. So, like I had mentioned off the top, attending Mercyhurst University. Let's start with what went into your decision to attend Mercyhurst.
Okay. I don't know if you know this, but originally I was committed to Dartmouth, and what happened was actually they had a coaching change, and after that happened, like, me and their coach had a conversation. We were like, they had 4 goalies committed for the next 2 years, and together we kind of decided that that wouldn't be the best place for me because I wouldn't have as many opportunities to start as I would like, or to have the experience in games to grow. So I decommitted, and I was actually pretty late because I originally, started the conversation for the 2025 year, and I decommitted after the 2026s already started talking. So a lot of those spots were already filled. So I was, to be honest, kind of worried. But Mercyhurst reached out and they were like, we might have a spot for 2025. And I was already talking to them before. And then with Stoney, we actually ended up going to Mercyhurst and playing them in an exhibition game. And I had the opportunity to tour again. And I realized that, if I have the option to go here, I want to go here. It was, the campus was small, which was what I wanted originally as well. And the coaches, they wanted me there, which was something that I myself and my parents put a big focus on, was the fact that you don't want to go somewhere where you're not wanted, somewhere where they might say they will let you play, but they're kind of dismissive about everything else. You want to go somewhere where they're like, yes, I can see you playing, I can see you starting the first year even. And that was kind of what I was looking for. And then in addition to that, a lot of the other schools I was talking to at the time were for the 2026 year. And just having the opportunity or option even to play in 2025 was what I originally wanted anyways, because I didn't want to take another gap year because I had already played a year of junior, 2 years now. I didn't want to play a third year of junior and, I don't know, stagnate my growth or stop playing to the level I can play. I wanted to keep, getting to that next level and growing and getting as good as I can. And that was kind of why I chose Mercyhurst.
Interesting. So, no, fun fact, I didn't know that. So that's a little tidbit there. So I appreciate that. So I'm gonna do a follow-up question on it. And what was it like to make that adjustment to, I've committed and now I've decommitted and now I have to I'm committing now to a new school. What did it feel like to make that adjustment? And also, like, what are you most looking forward to with Mercyhurst? Like, it's an incredible program. But what are some of those things that you're also looking forward to heading into your time with Mercyhurst?
Yeah, so some of the adjustments, I think it's just not something that most people do because normally you commit to a school and you end up going there. But my situation, I would say, was, unique, and it ended up turning out pretty well because I am really happy with where I am and where I'm going to go. So, I'm excited to get to Mercyhurst next year and, meet all of the girls that are there and will be there, and hopefully, play some games and just challenge myself at that next level and playing against those even better players and hopefully getting even better myself.
And I want to know as well, you know, going through this process, selecting what will become the next stage in your career, in your lengthy career, I'm sure. Um, what's some advice that you might have for some players who are approaching that decision and unsure of, how do I do this? What should I be looking for? What should I not be looking for in terms of making sure that it's the right fit for them? What's some advice that you might be able to have for them?
Yeah, so like I said previously, make sure it's where you're wanted, because if it's somewhere where you're not wanted, you're not going to end up doing what you want to do. And then also, the campus has to be, the school has to be somewhere where it feels like home. Because, my dad always said, you have to look at the university, not just the hockey aspect. And his example was always, I'm sure, it's a common example, but you have to think about it in a way as, if you get hurt and you can't play, will you still be happy there? And that was, for me, just a good way of looking at it, because it let me kind of look beyond what I was looking at before, just the hockey, just the stats, and allowed me to see the schools for more than just their hockey program, whether it was, somewhere I wanted to go, whether they had a program that I actually wanted to study in, and, just everything outside of hockey. Although, hockey is a big aspect, hockey is the reason you're looking at these schools. It's not going to be your whole life while you're at college. And yeah.
That's solid advice. It's not just about the hockey, it's about the overall experience. And I love that. And I want to know, as you look, obviously this is we're jumping a little bit ahead here, but I know based off of your success and your pedigree and your determination and your skill that the PWHL, we'd be like, if we didn't talk about the PWHL, I think we'd be missing a huge topic to discuss here. And I just kind of want to know, lastly, before we get into the exciting game to end the show, what are your thoughts on the PWHL? And especially as we've entered now into the second season. We're seeing a lot of neutral site games, sellouts, and NHL arenas, which is just amazing to see. Just kind of, what are your thoughts on the PWHL, the growth of women's hockey, and maybe how you hope to fit into that as well?
I think, simply what they ended up doing, putting women's hockey on a bigger stage, streaming the games, having coverage for everyone to watch. And, when they sold out games, I don't think that's what they were expecting, but it showed them that people did want to watch women's hockey. It just wasn't available to them before. And, if they go in the same direction that I'm sure they will after the first season, selling out games and covering everything, it'll just keep it getting better. And especially, I was watching a game and I saw these ads and I was like, why are there so many ads? But when I actually thought about it, I realized that it meant that people were willing to put, money into the game. They were willing to sponsor these games and the PWHL in general because they believed that it could be as great as it is going. And it just kind of made me reflect on the fact that we do have a sustainable option for women's hockey in the future now. And hopefully, that's something that I will be able to achieve eventually. But just having it be an option to be there for younger kids, to say, I want to be in the PW one day, I think is just amazing for, everyone.
Yeah, and does that provide you with, not that as an athlete, again, you have the athlete mindset, so you're always going to be pushing and driving yourself, but does that add just maybe a little bit more to you, where it's hey, it's well established that typically, you go through you go through youth hockey, junior hockey, collegiate hockey, and then really the only options for you at that point was, do I go international or do I, work a job and then hope that I can make the national teams? Now there's a professional league. There's still strides that need to be made, but there's a professional league that pays you. Does that drive you just a little bit more every time you hit the ice, where you're I got to make sure this is where I want to go. I got to make sure I push myself.
Yeah, for me personally, I'd say, first of all, definitely. But if you look at it, college is only 4 years. So once those 4 years are over, for a lot of girls, women, that would be the end of their careers, unless they went overseas, or either way, they had to end up getting jobs, paying their bills, I don't know, everything that they did, because they didn't have somewhere to go that would actually pay them and where they could be seen on a larger stage. And I think personally, it just helps drive me even more because I have something to aim for even after college, not to get ahead of myself, but after those 4 years are done, there's somewhere else that I can aim to go to, whether, that does end up being the PW or overseas. It's just another goal and another opportunity that could happen eventually.
Great answer, and I love that. And you're still it's never necessary. It's of course being where your feet are right now, but you also kind of have to think about what could be next for you. So I love that. I love that. We're going to transition to the final segment of the show. I just feel like we just started talking and we're already at the end of the conversation. But this next segment is it's a staple on Rinkside Rundown, and really what it is, it's a scientifically proven test to, if we haven't already really got to know the one and only Tara Bach, we're going to find out even more in this next segment with this test, which is easy for me to say because I don't have to take the test. I just have to ask the questions. Are you ready to answer these questions?
Definitely. We're good.
Perfect. Let's go. Okay, first off, what are you most proud of from this past season?
I'd say probably we had a game at the start of the season against the Etobicoke Dolphins, and yeah, Jersey's right there. And going into that game, even in the past seasons, they were always one of the top teams. So I was, nervous to say the least. And after that game, we ended up winning. The shots were 50 to something, but it made me really proud to see, our entire team, the fact that we can beat these teams who in Canada are some of the best teams if we work together and if we all play our best. And that just made me proud of, not just myself and my game, but our entire team and how we managed to, play that game.
All right, and I promise that I will ask the fewest number of follow-up questions to all of these questions, but I cannot make the promise. I'll do my best. But next up is, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to see you play, how would you describe your style of play? Especially, you're one of the few goaltenders that I've had on the show, so I want to know a little bit more about how would you describe your style of play for the audience?
I'd definitely say that I'm a really calm goalie and I play very technically. So in the past, I was always told by my parents that I looked too calm in the net. They'd be freaking out in the stands and I'd just be standing there and kind of, not showing any emotions. And that's just kind of the way I've been my entire life. I tried not to outwardly, display whether I was nervous or not because I didn't want to give the other team, that edge or whatever. But that's kind of my game.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were born to be a goaltender. So, because it takes a certain type of person and personality to be able to be a great goaltender, and you are all of those things. And you know, this is about the off season. Obviously, we're into the season, but there is never really truly an off season for an athlete. Sure, you might have like a week off or something like that, but let's be honest, you're always doing something. But I wanted to know from you specifically, what does the off season look like, and how do you think throughout your career things have changed? Whether that's nutrition, maybe that's actually your workouts, maybe that's taking an extra day off, or something crazy like that. What does your off season look like?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changed a lot, especially in the, even past year. I used to, work out rarely because I just didn't recognize the impact that it actually does have on my game. And this past season, or off season, I took working out more seriously and I was in the gym more and, I skate, I wouldn't say every day, but most days. And if I wasn't skating, I was either, playing soccer or, as I said, playing 3-on-3. And, those were things that I've always done. But adding that extra aspect of, working out, going on a run, whatever it may be, I think that's just kind of helped me, especially this season, just play better than I have before.
Nice, I like it. And what would you say is your go-to pre-game meal?
For me, I normally like having, rice and chicken, but it also depends on, whatever we're making at home on that day. So sometimes it'll be noodles or I don't know, anything really. I'm not a really picky eater, so I'll have most things, but as
Okay,
long
so
as
there's no go-to, there's no ritual, there's no superstitions when it comes to meals or anything like that.
there's superstitions about a bunch of other things, but not meals.
Boom, follow-up question here. I've saved myself from asking follow-up questions to this point, but now I need to know superstitions. Break it down for me.
Okay, so on the way to the rink, I always listen to the same songs. So it depends, the ride to the rink is always a different length, but there will also always be like these few songs, like 4 songs that I always listen to, and then I'll add on to whichever ones I think are, fitting. And then when I'm at the rink, I always play sewer. And then when I'm getting ready, I always put my left side on before my right. And I have to put my entire pad on before I get to, tie my right pad onto my skate, because that's just kind of come around based off of I had a good game, so I'm not going to change it. And then, yeah, it's not that.
But you know what? You're actually one of the few guests I've had on the show who actually has superstitions. And I love it because I don't have superstitions, but I certainly have a routine in terms of I'm going to put this shoe on first, that shoe on, which is obviously not at all comparable necessarily to being an athlete, but similar to a degree. But you brought up there that you listen to the same four songs, and I want to know. Speaking of music, and this is going to be two separate questions here. But first of all, when you get to the rink, you're in the dressing room. Who owns the aux in that dressing room, and what's played most often? Do you remember?
So this year it's normally one of our two Americans who normally play, any kind of remixes. And then if it's anyone else, it ends up being country music. Yeah.
Good. Okay. I love that. I love that. From the country, so I always love myself some good country music. Do you remember, like, were there any real bangers that you like that were like really got you hyped up? Was there anything in like that like comes to mind off the top of your head?
I don't know if there's one specific song, but I always found that I don't really get, hyped up before a game. I just kind of end up getting dialed in and focused on what I need to do because that's just the way I play best. And that always ends up being country music. I just find, rock or I don't know, rap to be, too much for what I'm trying to do. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it breaks up your routine, your superstitions. So I get that. I get that. I respect that. Um, Speaking of your own music, though, I want to know if you had to choose only one song to play for the rest of your life, what song would it be? And the caveat being, it doesn't have to be played all of the time, but if you're going to listen to a song, it has to be this song. What song would that be for you?
Um, probably anything country, and then more specifically, either probably Revival or Something in the Orange. They always hit. I don't know.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. That's fantastic. And I want to know, lastly, before we wrap up this conversation, what's something that people may not know about Tara Bach?
Um, I was born in Switzerland, but I'm not Swiss, and I skipped a grade.
Oh, look at you, eh? It was sorry, follow-up question. Was that because you were just like smarter than everyone else and you just like you were crushing it, or walk us through that? That's incredible.
Um,
That's definitely not something you can read on Wikipedia, that's for sure.
so after the year we spent in Germany, that was my grade 4 year, so we came back here for my grade 5 year, and I just ended up getting very bored, so I just read a bunch of books after I finished my work. So half the time in class, I wouldn't be doing any work because it was done. I would just be reading. So my parents were like, okay, let's see what we can do. So they went to the school board and they were like, is there any way she can skip a grade or, go into the gifted program? And they were like, you have to take, the gifted test first. So I did take that, but instead of waiting for the program, because that would have taken a while, I would have had to spend another year in the actual school, I ended up going to a private school and just went to grade 7 instead.
Wow, not only are you great on the ice, but you were also great off the ice. So that's fantastic and a great place to end this conversation. And Tara, like I said earlier, like I feel like we just started talking and here we are and now we have to say goodbye, but I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time. You have had a crazy year, like I mentioned, U18s and all these sorts of things, and you took the time to hang out. I really appreciate it. So thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. And there you have it, folks. For Tara Bach, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been Rinkside Rundown. Cheers.